Hello everybody. Today's video is for educational purposes, for the purposes of your enlightenment and illumination, and for the purpose of your continuous daily growth in the Word of God and in the knowledge of the Bible. Today I'd like to continue my video series on the doctrines of the biblical inerrancy, the biblical infallibility, the biblical non-contradiction, the biblical non-confusion, the biblical holy inspiration, and similar ones. The doctrine of the biblical inerrancy means that the Bible contains absolutely no errors whatsoever. And the doctrine of the biblical infallibility that means that not only that it does not contain any errors whatsoever, but it cannot, and it has not ever, and it will not ever, and it's perfect from the beginning until the end. And you can check on dictionary.com what the definition of the word perfect is. And in support of these doctrines, I'd like to furnish you with a couple of verses from the Bible. You can check them for yourselves. You don't have to trust me. Today's topic will be on whether Jesus bared his own cross. Again, the question is, did Jesus bear his own cross? What does the Bible tell us about whether he bared his own cross? In John chapter 19, verse 17, the Bible answers us with a clear yes. And I'm going to read the verse. I'm going to start with verse 16 to 18. Then Pilate handed Jesus over to be crucified, and the soldiers took him away. Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. Then they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one of each side, and Jesus in the middle. Now, verse 17 says, carrying his own cross, and that's in John. Now, we're going to read from Matthew 27, 31, and 32. I'm going to start from verse 30. And they spat on him and took the staff and struck him on the head repeatedly. After they had mocked him, they removed the robe and put his own clothes back on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. Along the way, they found a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him, Simon, to carry the cross of Jesus. Another translation says, after they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. When they were finally tired of mocking him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to be crucified. And actually, it's verse 32 that needs. And as they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. Another translation renders it, along the way, they came across a man named Simon who was from Cyrene, and the soldiers forced him, Cyrene, to carry Jesus' cross. As they went out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. They compelled this man to carry Jesus' cross. As you can see, to the question, did Jesus bear his own cross? The Bible clearly, unequivocally, and unambiguously, and non-confusingly answers us with a yes and a no. I'd like to point your attention to the fact that Matthew does not mention in any way whatsoever that Jesus ever even tried carrying his cross. It is very clear that this holy gospel says that along the way they found a man from Cyrene named Simon. They forced him, Simon, to carry the cross of Jesus, etc. So Matthew doesn't even make a single hint that Jesus carried his own cross, whereas John contradicts this verse, saying that Jesus carried his cross, and he doesn't even mention Simon. I mean, as if Simon never existed. Not that he probably didn't exist, but I'm saying for John, Simon does not exist and didn't exist. And now, for those of you who haven't watched my previous videos, I apologize, but I need to repeat that. I'd like to mention here and to draw your attention to the logical absolutes, or the fundamental principles of logic, or the fundamentals of logic. And logic is the study of reasoning. That's how human persons, individuals, people, our society functions on reasoning and rationality and using your own brain. Reasoning is the process by which we use evidence to make judgments, to determine things, to discern, to judge, to try to discover or persuade others of the truth. Reasoning is verbally expressed in arguments, and these arguments need to be valid and truthful and sound. The fundamentals of logic are also called fundamental principles of logic, or laws of thought. And I want to stress that again. They're called laws of thought. That means that human thought is subject to certain laws. These three fundamental laws of thought, or laws of logic, are the law of non-contradiction, the law of excluded middle, or the law of excluded third, and the law of identity, or the principle of identity. Now, the law of non-contradiction stipulates that a thing cannot at the same time both be and not be. I'd like to repeat that. A thing at the same time cannot both be and not be. And not be of specified kind, as a table and not a table, or in a specified manner as the color blue or not blue. One thing cannot be both blue and not blue at the same time and in the same sense. And I'd like to expound a little bit. The law of non-contradiction further stipulates that nothing can both be and not be. In other words, two or more contradictory statements cannot both be true in the same sense at the same time. That is to say, a letter A or something, A, cannot be both A and not A at the same time and at the same sense. Now, further to the law of excluded middle or excluded third. The law of excluded middle stipulates that everything must either be or not be. There can be no middle part. In accordance with the law of excluded middle or excluded third, for every proposition or statement, proposition and statement being interchangeable, either its positive or its negative form is true. In other words, a proposition or a statement, it's either true or is not true. It cannot be both true and not true. And the law of identity, or the principle of identity, stipulates that whatever is, is. Now, I'm going to repeat that. Whatever is, is. That is to say, for all A's, A equals an A. Now, we've seen that, and if you also go and watch my previous videos, there are clear, irreconcilable contradictions. The apologists try in each and every way to, use loopholes, find workarounds to explain how, yes, one thing can be yes and no at the same time. But you have, according to the Bible, been born in God's image. That is to say, human beings are supposed to differ from all other flora and fauna and all other living beings because of their brain, or by virtue of their brain, that is to say, their ability to think, to reason, to make rational decisions, to apply critical thinking, to apply skepticism. Skepticism in the neutral sense of the word, not in the negative or positive, just in the neutral sense of the word. You can go ahead and analyze those verses. You can watch my previous videos. I strongly encourage you to read and analyze for yourselves and decide for yourselves. This is all for now, and I love you with the love of the Lord. I encourage you to watch my previous videos on the biblical inerrancies and doctrines of the biblical inerrancies, infallibility and integrity and whatnot. And I will appreciate your comments and opinions in the section below. Thank you very much for watching and listening, for analyzing and for applying your critical thinking skills and abilities. And may God abundantly bless you. Until the next time, bye.